In episode 2, you get a look at day 1 in Jakarta. It was a normal day. That is, as far as the public was concerned. As a woman named Ibu Ratna is eating lunch, the military comes and picks her up. She thinks she's committed a crime, but it's actually the exact opposite. They need her. That's because Ibu Ratna is a professor in mycology, and she's the best that Jakarta has. They arrive at a hospital, and they quickly rush her in to take a look at something. They have it under a microscope, and as soon as Ibu looks at it, she knows that it's something called Ophiocordyceps. What she can't figure out is why they use chlorazole to prepare the slide. Chlorazole is only used when it's taken from a human, and cordyceps wouldn't be living in a human. But the military officer lets her know that this was taken from a human. She thinks there's been some mistake because cordyceps couldn't possibly live in humans, and that's when they take her to the body. They put her in a hazmat suit and they tell her to quickly get out of there if anything goes wrong. And she thinks there's no way anything's going to go wrong. It's a dead body. And as far as Ibu can see, it is in fact a dead body until she opens up the mouth. That's when Ibu gets horrified because there is living fungi growing out of it. When she's able to collect herself and sit down, the military officer tells her that all of this happened about 30 hours ago in a grain factory. That's when a normal woman got suddenly violent. She attacked 4 coworkers, she bit 3 of them, and that's when her coworkers locked her up in the bathroom and waited for the police to come. But when they did, she attacked them as well. They had no choice, they had to shoot her. Ibu asks what happened to the people that she bit, and the officer says they were taken into observation. Although a few hours later, it became necessary to execute them as well. The real question that Ibu has is who bit the first person? And to that, they have no idea. The second question she has is anyone missing? And he tells her yes, 14 people. That's when Ibu gets extremely fidgety. He tells her that they brought her here because they need medicine, they need a vaccine, they need something to keep this thing from spreading. And she very sternly looks at him and says, there is no medicine. There is no vaccine. That's when he gets very scared and asks, well, then what do we do? And she very seriously says, bomb. Bomb the city and everyone in it. She then realizes what she said, the severity of it, and she starts crying, asking the military officer to drive her home so she can just be with her family in this time. Fast forward to present day, where Ellie, Joel, and Tess have made it out of the quarantine zone and made it to an abandoned building. But they have questions for Ellie. Mainly, how the hell is it that she got bit, and she's saying it was weeks ago and she's survived up until this point. They also want to know what the hell Marlene was doing with an infected kid. Ellie quickly snaps, I'm not infected. Marlene found me after I was bitten. She chained me up in a room and every day they would give me a test to see that I wasn't getting more sick. Ellie then gets up and proclaims to the room that she has to pee, so she goes to a corner and starts doing it, and that gives Tess and Joel a little bit of time to talk about what they're going to do with her. While it doesn't make any sense, Tess does point out she made it through the night. She seems fine. But Joel doesn't want to take that risk. He wants to sneak her back into the QZ and find another way to get this car battery. Tess, however, doesn't want to do that. She knows that this is the easiest way to get the car battery, but also, if they bring her back to the QZ, someone's going to scan her, find out that she's, quote, infected, and kill her. And Joel doesn't care. He says, better them than us. He's so callous that he even says, we got to stop talking about this kid like she's got some kind of life in front of her. That's when Ellie walks back and interrupts the conversation, putting a halt to it. Tess then asks Ellie, why are you so important to Marlene? And don't lie to me or we'll take you back. But to their surprise, Ellie says, well, if you take me back, you don't get your battery. Yeah, she heard the whole conversation. Tess doesn't flinch, just saying, well, then I guess you heard that he wants to shoot you. So answer my question. And that's when Ellie reveals what Marlene told her, why she's so important. It's because they think she's immune. There's a Firefly base camp out west, and they're working on a cure. And getting her to that base camp could be key to finding a vaccine. While Joel is hesitant to believe any of this, Tess pushes him to just finish the job, get their battery, and get on their way. They then start making their way through a mangled Boston. But Boston isn't just destroyed because of the infected. It's destroyed because they bombed major cities. Tess tells Ellie that they had to slow the spread somehow, so bombing the major cities was the best option they had. But now it looks like a war zone. While it seemed to work in Boston, that strategy did not seem to work in most places, because infected still roam. As they continue to walk, what Ellie can't figure out is where all the infected are. She can't hear them. And Tess tells her, oh, don't worry, you'll hear them. But Ellie's worried because she didn't hear them last time. She then tells Tess that the place she got bit was an old mall. Tess is shocked because that mall is supposed to be closed off to everybody. She asks Ellie, how old are you? And Ellie tells her she's 14. To which Tess responds, man, you got some balls on you. Tess then asks Ellie if anyone's going to be coming after them, if they should expect any surprises. And Ellie says, no, I'm an orphan. They then hear in the distance some infected scream. And that's when Ellie knows that, yes, they still are out there. After a little bit of walking, they make their way to an abandoned hotel that used to be pretty damn nice, but now it's flooded and disgusting, although Ellie's amazed by it. They're not staying at the hotel, though. They want to use it just to see if the pathway that they're going to take is clear. They find an area, though, they can't get into, and Tess is forced to try to find a way in. That leaves both Joel and Ellie to bond, although every question that Joel has for Ellie, she gives a smart-ass answer to. Ellie does have her own questions, though, like, where are Joel and Tess from? And Joel tells her, I'm from Texas, and Tess is from Detroit. Although that is the only question that Joel answers. He doesn't answer how he got to Boston. He doesn't answer if him and Tess are an item. Ellie decides to change the topic from Joel's personal life to the infected, asking how long they usually last. And Joel tells her it really depends. Some last a month. Some have been walking around for 20 years. Ellie then asks him if he's killed any, and he says, yeah, lots of them. Joel is very relieved when the questions stop because Tess has found a way in. It looks like it's the entrance to the old hotel pool, but Tess wants to show Ellie something, because when you go to the balcony and you look down, there's just a swarm of dead bodies. Tess explains that the last time they came through, they were still inside, but people probably came through looking for the quarantine zone, went in, got bit, and then forced their way out. And that's how they get more and more every year. The sun then suddenly shines on a group of them, and they all move in unison. And Ellie points out that they're connected. And Tess says, yeah, more than you know. The fungus also grows underground. If you step on a group of cordyceps in one place, you could wake up a dozen somewhere else. Then they know where you are, and then they all come. She reminds Ellie, you're not immune from being ripped apart. Unfortunately for them, the group with all the bodies, that was where they were going to go. So now they need to go to their contingency plan. That's going to be going through a museum. They make their way in, and they don't run into any infected on the first floor, although it is covered with fungus. They then slowly make their way to the top, and they do hear the screams of somebody who is infected. Suddenly, they're dangerously close to this thing. To make it worse, it's a clicker. Joel tells both Ellie and Tess to be quiet. Doesn't matter how quiet they are, though, the clicker walks by, senses their presence, and screams. The first one goes after Joel, and the second one rushes at Tess, although she shoots it dead, and then her and Ellie flee for their lives. The more they run, the more noise they make. At this point, Joel has been able to get rid of the first clicker, but it seems like they're just multiplying. It gets so bad that one of them jumps on both Joel and Ellie, and Joel is somehow able to keep this thing from biting both of them. The final one is taken out by Tess, and then they check themselves. Ellie was bit, but as Ellie points out, if it was going to happen to any of them, it might as well be her, right? They then start making their way to the meeting location with the fireflies, but Tess suddenly seems like she's in a bad mood, and she seems a little banged up. A couple hours later, they get to the location where they're supposed to meet the fireflies. It's the Capitol building, but nobody's there, and they're pretty concerned. Especially when they start gingerly looking around, and it looks like there was a slaughter. Like the fireflies were ambushed by something and torn apart. And Joel, Tess, even Ellie have a pretty good idea of what it might have been. Ellie notices, though, that whatever it was went inside because there's a fresh trail of blood. And not even thinking, Tess escorts Ellie in. She seems to be in a rush. When they get inside, everybody's dead. By looking at the bodies, Joel can tell that one of them got bit, the healthy ones fought the sick ones, everybody lost. The fact that this hasn't gone as planned has Tess's anxiety at an all-time high. And finally, Joel says, Tess, it's over. We're going home. And Tess snaps at him. When she calms down, she tells him, I'm staying. And then she reveals why. Because in that skirmish, Tess got bit. She walks over to Ellie, grabs her arm, shows Ellie's bite, the fresh one, and her bite. And one looks drastically worse, and it's hers. She tells Joel, this is real. I need you to get her to Bill and Frank's. You can hand her off. The whole time, Joel is just saying no, but Tess snaps him out of it by saying, you have to. I've never asked you for anything, but I'm asking you now. This is your chance to get her there. Keep her alive, set everything right. One of the dead people starts to come to life, and Joel shoots it. But just like Tess said earlier, sometimes you step on cordyceps, and a mile away, the infected feel it. That's what happens. Joel notices that the ground is moving. He knows that he doesn't have a lot of time before they're swarmed by the infected. And while he doesn't want to leave Tess behind, she doesn't give him a choice. She's going to sacrifice herself, telling Joel to get Ellie out of there. With time running out, Joel follows the order. Him and Ellie exit out the back, and the infected rush in. Tess dumps a bunch of gasoline on the ground, but it's not as easy as simply lighting a match. Her lighter won't work. The worst part of this whole thing is the fact that Tess's last moments on Earth are making out with an infected as she's trying to get her lighter working. It's pretty damn gross. Nobody deserves that kind of ending, but a few clicks, the lighter works, and the whole building explodes with a bunch of infected dying. Ellie and Joel just continue to head off out west. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.